to Imaginative Visions Journeys, where creators from the entertainment world discuss their journey to turning their dreams into reality. With your host, Justin D. Williams.
We are back with another episode of Imaginative Visions Journeys. This is episode 2, folks, and I have a wonderful guest for everybody here today. She is a Jill of all trades. She does tattoos. She has her own shop. She does a lot of things, and we're going to get into what she does. She's based in DC. Everybody, please welcome a very cool and close friend of mine. Please welcome Imani K Brown to Imaginative Visions. Imani, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, what's going on, bro?
I'm doing good, sister. How you doing? It's good to see you. It's been a while.
I know, right? Like, I think when you asked me about this, I was like, dang, the last time I saw Jay was literally we were in Union Station.
Yeah.
Like that ice, the ice thing.
Yeah, it was during Otakon where you showed me I'm actually gonna post that. I'll post that, folks, in the showcase so you can see me and Monty having fun with Young. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about for the video section, but for those in the audio section, she took us to this ice place, and I forgot it was in the terminal station, right?
Yeah. I think y'all were about to leave to go back to New York or something.
Yeah, and there's this guy. He's like, "Oh, you gotta try this guy. You gotta try this ice ball thing." We was like, "Okay." So I take it and I just jam it in there, and then it just literally my whole tongue just iced up quick. I was like, "Oh, good God!" But for those in the showcase section, exactly. For those in the showcase moment, you'll definitely see it. I will definitely post that clip up for everybody to see it. But we're going to kick this thing off. For those who've seen our first episode, we do things based on sections. So Imani's here to talk about her journey of how she became a tattoo artist, entrepreneur, and all other things that she's doing. So we're going to kick this off with origins. And for those who are our first time watchers or listeners, origins is when the guests and we talk about the beginnings of how they found their passion. So Imani, let's start right from the beginning. When did you first discover your gifts of artistry, and do you remember the exact moment when you said, "You know what, I want to do tattoos. I want to be a tattoo artist"?
So I don't remember the exact moments. I should say that I come from a family of artists.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I think that was already in me. My mom used to go to, I know my fondest memories are the ugliest photos of me when I was a kid. When my mom used to go to she used to go to class, and in going to class she would leave me with my grandma, and the classes she was going to were she was in art school, so she was actually going to photography class, painting, things like that. And she would leave me with my grandma, and all the ugly pictures are of me sitting on the steps with crayons, crying, snot running out my nose, I want to go. So I think that would probably be when the indicator of, yeah, she's a young artist. Because that's you could tell me my mom was going anywhere else, I didn't care about her going anywhere else, but I cared about following her to her schooling, which was art classes. Other than that, just I made a conscious decision. I talk about this in my book, but I made a conscious decision that I wasn't built for anything else when it came time to choose to go to college. Mm-hmm. So going to college, everybody was like, you should go for art education, go for business, go for art and X, Y, and Z. And it was just one of those things nope, not built for anything else. Going for art. Thanks. Bye. I didn't know what the plan was. I just knew that I wasn't going to end up in anybody's office. I didn't want to work for anybody. And it just felt right. And if I was paying for it, I should go for what I want to go for. So
Exactly. And that's one thing I've always noticed about artists is that even with me myself as well, is that I struggle. I do a 9-to-5 job right now, every day I clock in, I'm struggling, like just to get through that day because the creative side just constantly is taking
Just
over.
wants to run.
It's just like, what are you doing here? You have stories you have to do. Like I hear the characters in my head, write me this. Is just like, what in the God's name? Like, leave me alone. I have to make a living here. But I've noticed that with the path of a lot of writers is that just not just writers, but artists in general, whether you're a game developer or a tattoo artist or whatever passion that you have creatively, you feel stifled with that 9 to 5. And there's always people, and we'll get into that with the roadblocks, but there's always people that say, hey, you need to just, settle down, do your 9 to 5. Oh, don't worry about the art. Art's a very difficult struggle. That's a hard path to do. Maybe you should focus on this, have a backup plan. But then you leave yourself in a what if scenario. Like, what if I
Yeah,
didn't do it?
yeah.
Exactly.
I think that was the thing. Like, I was like, I don't want a backup plan. Like, this is it, all or nothing. Like, let's go. My mom couldn't argue with me. I made a very good argument because she was just like, well, don't you want to go for and don't you want to have a backup plan? I get it. She's the mom. She's, worried about her daughter being a struggling artist type of deal. So I get that. But my argument was literally, I'm going to college because that's big for the family. But again, if I have to pay for it, I'm going for what, like, I'm buying this product. So I'm going for what I want, which is going to be art. I'll figure out the rest later. I got 4 years to figure it out. So that's all I got. And she was just like, I actually can't argue with that. So she didn't, and she helped me help everybody else back off. So when everybody else was like, don't you want to go for art or don't you want to have a backup plan? She's just like, she made the argument, guys. I don't think like there are really no loopholes in her argument. So yeah.
And
kudos to her for teaching me to be a self-thinker. So
I mean, that's the path of creativity. That's actually one of the most important lessons when you're creating, is just that you do have that path that you have to choose, and it's just like there is risk involved. And like I said in the previous episode, for those who've seen it, when it comes out, you have to take risk. Risk is the key, especially if you're a creator. You have to take the risk. You can't be afraid, because you're going to end up in this what if scenario. You will be in that 9 to 5 position where you're going, I should have went for that. I should have went to film school. I should have went to that art school. I should have did this to this. And it kind of leaves a kind of a disappointing, miserable existence, because you start to become bitter with yourself, because it's like you live in this bubble, like you feel trapped. But so that was how Imani became, how she discovered. But who were some of your influences in the art world that made you, kind of inspired you to become like a tattoo artist or take this path in general? And you said your mother and you have families, but there's any other influences that you can name?
So my influences at the time, it wasn't to become a tattoo artist. My influences for becoming a tattoo artist aren't people, and it's pretty dark. But my influences to become an artist was literally the Harlem Renaissance. Like, I was like, I want to be that artist in Harlem doing my thing. All the great artists come from Harlem and row houses. Like, I had this very romanticized view of what I wanted my life to look like as an artist. And it came from people like Romare Beard and Langston Hughes, a bunch of artists, from writers to visual artists, photographers, and I can't even, like, I get excited talking about it, so I can't even name like a bunch of names. My brain is all like, yes, and let's go. But especially in learning African art and art history and bringing up the Harlem Renaissance, I could see myself in art. So like all the time, like going to art school, you're always given like art history, but you're given like really, really white art history, where it's just like, it's cool, I jam with my favorite period is Rococo and Baroque period, got it, but they don't look like me. Like, what are the people who look like me doing? And when it got to that point in art history, it was like, that's me, that's what I want to do, that's what I want to be. Fuck it. Oh, sorry.
No, you can't. This is rated R, girl. We good.
I'm like, oh shoot.
Oh, no, we good.
I'm literally like, that's what I want to do. Like, it wasn't they were master artists, but for some reason you could feel where they were exploring themselves, exploring the world around them, and just kind of taking it all in and creating a process of what they actually, sorry, I want to sneeze and I'm crying.
No, no,
Um,
no.
but just in that process of taking it all in and then like just putting it out in this inspiration of what it actually translate to for them was very exciting, and I was just like, that's what I want to do. So it was literally from that particular period, so Harlem period, Harlem Renaissance period, and learning about that in art history would actually be the artists that came out of that would be the inspirations. I know people would probably think that I'd say somebody like, what's his name, um Basquiat or something, but no.
And there's actually a little bit more influence because you of course you mentioned the hard Renaissance, but a lot of your style and brand comes influence a little bit from the Japanese culture with the
Yeah, yeah.
Kawaii. So how did you get into that type of culture as well, and when did you become a fan of that? I mean, I mean, I know because we did tacos and geeks, but for those who don't know, how did the Japanese culture as well influence not just the brand but the style, clothing, and everything else that you do?
So one, I do have to blame otakus and geeks for like popping the top of being like, yeah, that's what you're into. Okay, fine, we have a space for you here, um, and just kind of letting me live in it. But originally, I came into it. So and I talk about this. My book talks about literally how tattoos and kawaii life saved my life. But literally, just in wanting to surround myself with happier things, wanting to explore, things, um, is what led me to Kawaii lifestyle. So again, that idea of self-expression and taking in all of these things from the world as inspiration, but you're puking them out, and like, this process of how you actually understand those things was really cool. And now we're doing it in clothes and taking street snaps. Oh, I'm there, pull up. So that was, it would be going to cons, blogging for otakus and geeks. And when I blogged, I had to do a lot of research. Research sent me down rabbit holes before I knew it. I was living on Tumblr and in a sensational kawaii life where I was like, again, this me. Hi, me. I don't know what I could see in the styles that actually resonated. A lot of it reminded me of like nostalgic times, childhood, like stuff that was really like, that was my jam. Yeah. And seeing other people of age actually dressing to those things was very inspirational. So I was just like, I mean, it's not hurting anybody. Might as well try it out. And next thing you know, it was like, again, back to Baroque and Rococo period. It shows up here too. Let's go. Like all the things are there. So, all the green lights.
And everything became full circle. And you're originally from DC as well,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
okay? So how did DC? Because and this is one thing I'm glad I have you here because you're DC, and I go to DC at least yearly, and used to go
Yeah.
bi-monthly before the bug came and destroyed the planet.
Right.
Um, but DC doesn't get a lot of credit when it comes to just culturally the art, the style, and I think DC is really overshadowed by New York in the in the metropolitan area because they're so close. They're 4 hours
Yeah.
apart.
Yeah.
So you hear about Baltimore, you hear about New York. Hell, you even get Jersey gets a little bit of credit from time to time. But DC is so underrated when it comes to just the creativity and what they actually bring, what they actually introduce. So how was the environment of DC also played a role in the creativity of what you do?
Man, everything. So, and it's funny because these days I actually nerd out about DC fashion, street fashion, and J Street fashion, because a lot of stuff that we look at in J Street fashion is DC in like the 80s and 90s. So it's again stuff that I grew up with. So it was like,
Mhm.
well, damn, like, here it is full circle. DC had a very cool like go-go culture. So go-go has always played a part in my life. Um, And then once you start looking at go-go, of course, music also breeds fashion. We look at hip hop, we know that that happens, right? So for DC, we bred fashion. Fashion was these colorful letters that would spell out madness, hobo, all days, things like that. And guess what? It made it all the way to Japan with some PA tapes of go-go that literally embedded itself into kawaii fashion. So these colorful letters that came from DC are now like colorful clothes and colorful letters that are now embedded in kawaii culture and Japanese street fashion. Quiet as kept, a lot of that, or a lot of that in spare, was literally from DC culture, DC street fashion culture. We were very colorful. We did weird stuff. Guys had things like ripped jean shorts with thermals and slouch socks and Tim's on, like all types of stuff that it was like, okay, mixing of the seasons, but what's happening here? But why does it look cool? But I don't want to wear that. But you can pull it off great. It was just a very weird hodgepodge. But that hodgepodge, again, you could tell people were just exploring themselves. And it was a very moody and expressive time. And to see that show up in Japan was like, in Japanese street fashion, as I started learning about it, was like, I've arrived. Like, this is it. Like, this is it. So yeah.
It's so funny because you brought up the go-go, because I remember singer Marie really introduced that towards the R&B hip hop with the sounds that she was doing with what I think was thank you. It's one thing. I should know that because I'm like the biggest Marie fan, and she's from DC, from what I understand. So yeah. So she brought that type of sound, and Beyonce stole it. But then, let's keep it real. Beyonce borrowed it, and then made it her own. But that's so interesting because that's what I mean by DC doesn't get that much credit for what they bring to the table. But now we have a idea of the origins of Imani. We heard how she started, what inspired her. We're gonna get into there's no success without roadblocks. Every path has the journey. So Imani, what were some of the early struggles as an artist? Because we always hear that term, struggling artist. Can you tell us some of the early struggles that you had when you was first beginning?
Let's see. 3 struggles that I had would be accepting that I wanted to explore art. So I didn't ADD. So you just bouncing all over the place. I can't commit to one style. And being able to embrace that, because there's a special place for people like who can actually be that fluid and well-rounded and move around in things. So being able to embrace that was a huge struggle. I still struggle with it. Money. So when we actually talk about the struggling artists, we're literally talking about money. And what was the third one would probably be it wouldn't be I want to say making the decision, but no, that wasn't a struggle at all. That was just like, I'm here. It's going to be art or nothing. Probably finding the space, like literally finding that space that would answer the call of like money situation, and being able to move around. So like actually having something that would support those 2 things, and finding space in art to do that thing, I think those were the main 3 roadblocks. I'm a big dreamer, so I'm huge into being a visionary, and I'm just now learning how to actually break down big visions and dream big and all that good stuff. But I would dream big before, and then also like naysayers. So I think that would be probably like the 4th thing. So when people be like, like you said before, to your point, oh, get a backup plan. Oh, do this, do that. The naysayers of, I don't believe in you. And you'll be so excited about it. You're like, to the moon. Sorry, Dogecoin. But We were just looking at stocks this morning, but literally, like, you're just like, yeah, I can do this. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it. And then here come people like, have a backup plan. What if you fall? What if you fail? What if, X, Y, and Z? And you haven't thought about any of that stuff. Why? Because you can do it. It's just, figuring out how. Like, so much you can do it that you can almost reach out and touch it, but people come in and will break all of that down, which I find interesting because as a kid, they tell you could do whatever you want. So until about age 12, it's like, you can reach the stars and you can go to the moon and you can do this. And by the time you're 12 and you're like, well, actually, I do want to reach the stars and go to the moon. No, you can't do that. No, kid. That's so I think naysayers and that disbelief of whether I could make it in art. Since that was like literally, I don't know what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna figure it out, but this feels like where I'm supposed to be. I don't have any immediate answers for you. And I'm okay with that. I need you to be okay with that type of deal was always a roadblock. So I just nix people out of my life.
And I think to touch on, just to piggyback what you just said, that's very important to when you're not to just keep beating the head of the theme of dream killers, but there are people out there that you would think will be supportive of you and what you're doing with your path. And then next thing you know, they're like, oh, you know what, you shouldn't do this. And then you're like, why are you trying to stop me? You start having that feeling in your mind. You're like, why are you trying to stop me? Like, what's the problem? If I make it, I make it. Don't you think if I make it, I'm going to take care of y'all too? Like,
I get the difference in people who are literally just like, okay, let's think about this logically. Let's figure out how we're going to do it, and then those literal dream killers who are like, nah, fam, like you'll never get there. You'll never do this. You know what I mean? Those people, they for the birds. That's old news. We're not doing that here. So, but I do keep people around who will help me think logically. So if dreams seem too big, they'll help me bring it down so that way it becomes attainable for me. Those people are different from naysayers and dream killers. Those people are actually like, they're useful.
Exactly. Like, I mean, you can have like the biggest dream, but it's always important, and I'm going to touch on that what you just said. It's always important, folks, to have people who not say bring you down to reality, but bring it down to the point like, okay, let's like we're not going to go out of space. We can't go to space right now. We're not trained astronauts. We can try, but I mean, if you want to do that, maybe you can try to go into NASA and then try to see if you can get into space, things like that.
They're the people who give you the tether. So if you're into space movies and you're always floating in space, they always have a tethering thing to help pull you back and keep you from just floating wildly in space. Those are the tethers. I would like, those are the people who literally like, okay. So I believe in you. I just don't want you floating wildly. So I'm going to make sure there's a tether here. So you need to come back down and reground yourself that you got this. But other than that, go be great.
And that's the thing when it comes to, especially with creative people, is when we touch more on the struggling artist theme, right? That we're talking about here is you mentioning finances. That's probably the hardest part when it comes to pursuing your goals and making your dreams into reality. Is finances. Is how do I fund my project without taking a big bank loan and having to pay that back? B, without trying to do a 9 to 5. Like, did you freelance? Did you go to different shops to just, what did you do to kind of tackle those type of issues?
So I did freelance first, and I talk about this all the time because I'm like, the hustle is so separate, guys. I need y'all to understand this. The dream is free. You can dream all day. The hustle part, that's so separate. But I did freelance first. So I would start doing freelance in college and learning like that literally I was right. Working for somebody else just wasn't my jam. And it got in the way of things that I needed to do to actually reach my dreams. So working a job, even in college, was not the move, but I needed money. So I started doing actually what was I doing? Headshots. Since I had the photography studio, I was a photography student, and I had keys, and my friends needed headshots, professional headshots for their jobs. Hey, look, my job is to make sure you look good. So I started doing that freelance. That turned into doing like commission and other freelance work. And I did that steady. Eventually, I started a photography business while I was in college, that helped me just, just kind of survive, just float through, have money for, odds and ends, eating, all of that good stuff. I registered it when I came home after I graduated. And then I realized that all the money was in doing weddings.
Mm.
And I don't have the temperament for that. Like, I wanted to chuckle bride. And I was like, it's gonna mess up the money that I finally, got to for now. So I decided not to do that. And I got my first actual job, which was at Ritz Camera. So still in photography. And that's because I could use the resources that were there for free, which were people. It wasn't like the chemistry or anything like that to do photos. It was literally the people who came in. There were other photography owners and business owners who were coming into Ritz Camera, and I used that as an up to find out my next resources to get to like the next step. So literally each step I would just kind of, what do I need now? Like, what's the immediate need? I know it's money, but what do I need the money for?
Exactly.
And then, figure out how much I actually need and what I'm actually willing to give of myself to get that. So it was always like this balancing act of, is that worth it type of deal. And that's usually what I did, like freelance, assign the money, and then these days trying to grow the money. So that was literally it. And then I think I became attracted to how to put things that were successful on repeat, so that way I could keep money coming in the door. Because that was the thing, like, for artists, we could get money. We'll learn how to get money one time, but we don't figure out how to put that on a cycle of repeat. And that's where I was like, well, any other business puts everything else on a cycle. CVS, McDonald's, there's always some shit on the cycle. So how do I put this on a cycle so I keep money coming in the door? And when I was in tattoo is when I started saying that there's somebody screaming outside. Sorry. It was odd. I thought it was cicadas at first, but nah, that was a human. But yeah, with that, just, trying to figure out, and I talked to my tattoo mentor where I was like, I'm trying to figure out how to put like the money that is coming in the door on repeat. I don't want to wait and guess how much is going to come in, which is usually the mindset and cycle of an artist or most creatives. Actually, is literally just like, well, where's my next money going to come from? I know I want my next money to come from this. How do I make that happen? The end. So that's what I did. And yeah, like I'm just trying to figure out how to put them on repeat even bigger. So yeah.
And before we get into the destination, just one more question for the roadblocks. You having your own brands such as LittleINKPlayShop and of course IPuke. What were some of the challenges getting that started when it came to just from the creativity, collaborative effort, and what were some of the roadblocks with those?
My biggest roadblocks were myself. So fear of the unknown. So again, the dream is so big and you believe in it so much that you can reach out and touch it, but you really know you don't have a plan of how you're going to sustain it. So what happens after you touch it? So it was fear of the unknown. I had huge imposter syndrome, things we still struggle with as like any cycle of creativity, you're still going to struggle with it. So huge imposter syndrome. And I had to figure out how to get out of my way, which the biggest roadblock was getting out of my head, was to get out of my way, talk about it, actually voice it out. And I became a proponent of actually talking to yourself, because sometimes things sound good in your head until you say it out loud, and you say it and it's like, the hell, I was thinking that. that don't even make sense. So after a while, I have people I talk to, of course. My tattoo mentor was a huge part in that. But if it was something that was like, I just need to get it out, let's just see what this sounds like, I would actually talk to myself. Um, I would actually talk to myself. So in talking to myself and talking to other people, I was able to actually remove myself from in front. I was the biggest roadblock for actually getting my success these days. I'm still the biggest roadblock for getting my success these days. So I usually still have to go back to square one of that cycle of, okay, what did you do last time to get out of your way? Do that again and add one more thing, like just keep pushing. So that's literally like the biggest roadblock, still is.
And I think that's for everybody, every single human being, we all get in our own way at
Yeah.
some point, especially because there's doubt, there's insecurities, there's things that we deal with just as being just
Mhm.
for just being human from life experiences. But once you overcome that, you get to your destination, which is our
Yeah.
next step. So how did you feel when you first did your first tattoo and your first brand comes out? How did you feel? Was it just like, I did it? It's like, yes.
Wait, so my first tattoo in general or my first tattoo in LittleINKPlayShop in my studio?
Yeah, your studio.
In my studio, I don't know. I think this is gonna sound mean.
Mhm.
I felt stupid.
Okay.
And reason being, again, being in your own way, you put so much self-doubt in the way
Mm.
that literally by the time I did my first tattoo, I was like, Imani, like this is what you've been doing all along. You're just doing it in a new space.
Mhm.
It was literally like the process doesn't change. The process doesn't change. Your customers are still your customers. You don't change as an artist in terms of how you attract your customers. That's why they're there. It's just a new space. So you just have, added responsibility. But doing a tattoo, like literally, it was like, okay, so you were scared about getting a new space to do tattoos? Like, what is this? So it was literally like, I felt stupid. Like I was talking to myself and it was like, girl, you are tripping. Like I remember doing my first tattoo and having a whole conversation. I called the people upstairs in my head, a council, 6 of them. And literally the council having a conversation, like if I had to, and I can't, I still have to illustrate this. The council, literally there's a round table in my head and everybody sits around this round table. But the round table is big, so nobody can actually reach across and touch each other or anything like that. But they'll argue a lot of times. And it was one of those things, like just a whole conversation of like, girl, you are stupid. Like, what? Why did you wait so long? Why did we not do this sooner? I told you, like, like it just felt like a bunch of self bickering inside where it was just like, yeah, you could have did this years ago. Like, but we're here now. So what are we going to do now? And after a while, by the time the tattoo ended, it was literally like, okay, so we've arrived. So what do we do next? So yeah, that's how I felt. It was probably one of the silliest moments. A lot of those moments happen when I tattoo, where literally it'll be a lot of self-reflection, a lot of the council like yelling at each other, a lot of like teddy bears and confetti being thrown in my head while I'm tattooing. I'm very present. And it's really weird, but those things happen a lot of times, and those are usually the times when I'm talking to myself the most is while I'm tattooing, and that's usually what's happening. So yeah, that's it. During my first tattoo in my then studio, because the studio's moved twice, or moved once since I opened it. So it's had 2 spaces. It's had 2 iterations of spaces. And that first iteration, it was just like, you were really scared, huh? This is a lot simpler than what we made it seem like in our head. Why did we do this to ourselves? Like, like we made a mountain out of a molehill, for real. So it was, it is what it is, but we're here now.
And now that you're here, if you can time travel back in time, what advice would you to give your younger self to make the roadblocks a little bit more easier?
Embrace them.
Smart.
Embrace the roadblocks, embrace the things that seem silly, embrace the things that don't have any particular meaning right now. Um, yeah, just embrace it. Embrace the quirkiness, embrace, not knowing,
Mhm.
embrace all of that. So I think that's where I would be. Like, I would literally just be like, it's fine, don't fight it. Cause I think a lot of my trials came from trying to fight it. Like, oh no, that's not normal. You're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be this way, and instead of just embracing it and finding your way from embracing it, finding your way from that vulnerability. So, now I'm just like, fuck it, just embrace everything.
And one more question for our before we get into the showcase where we will discuss your projects. What advice would you like to give to younger up and comers who are trying to obviously get into the art game, tattoo game? And usually I always tell people this when it comes to the advice section. We all do the standard: believe in yourself, work hard, work ethic. What real advice can you give to these people? Like copyright, watch your money, yeah, things like that. What
Hey guys,
Yes.
believe in yourself. You can do this. Please.
Yes, those are the generic advice that people always give. Believe in yourself. Yeah, we know that. But how did you get here? What did you do? So what advice can you give them?
I would honestly say make a plan, like write everything down. So no matter how unrealistic it would seem, don't let it stay there in your head. Write that shit down, like write it down, see yourself. And then from that, make a plan, make a decision of what you're going to go for, because the decision has to come before the plan. So make a decision of what it is that you want to do. Like, is it worth it? Are you going to go for it? Don't have no plan B. Plan Bs are whack. Like, don't have no backup plan. If you make that decision, when you make your decision, stand on it, make a plan, go for it, the end. Those are like literally like make your dreams tangible. So if it's living in your head, get it out, write it down, see yourself, talk to yourself if you have to, get friends involved if you have to, make your own real life counsel, not the one in your head because it could get scary up there, but your own in real life counsel where you can actually talk about the things that you wrote down. Do these things seem silly? I was thinking about these things and I could see myself like actually the more you talk it out, the more you're willing it into existence, the more you're actually telling the universe what it is that you want. And that will unfold before you know it, the minute that you ground yourself in it. So literally getting it out your head, writing it down, making a decision and making a plan will ground yourself in it to where the universe will unfold whatever else that you will need as you go along. So do that.
That is the perfect advice, and planning is always something that you have to do, because if you don't plan, you're running with your chicken with its head cut off. So it's just really important. Like Imani just said, get your ideas down, write it down, execute. Don't worry about the results till later, but the point is get your stuff out there, everybody. And most importantly, especially if you're artists, copyright your stuff.
Yes. There's two quotes that I actually live by. One is by Einstein, that the imagination is just a preview of what's to come for you. So whatever you can see in your imagination can actually be done. It's literally just a preview of what can come for you, of what is to come for you if you make the decision. And then the other one is that dreams without a plan are just wishes. So if you have dreams and you never make a plan, you just have a wish and you just hope it comes true, but you're pretty much just kind of shooting in the dark and you're not going to get the results you want. So use your imagination. You know that whatever you see there can happen. Now make a plan for it and let's go. Let's do it.
I hear that. And we are going to go into our showcase. Speaking of dreams that became plans and it came to reality with Imani, you alluded to in the early in the show about a book. So first, tell us a little bit about your book.
So my my book. Sorry, I wasn't trying to elude. I
Oh,
swear.
no. That's no. It's perfect. It's perfect because we. That's the whole point of the showcase. This is where we get into the nitty gritty of, telling everybody about your products because you want, you want people to know about it. So tell us a little bit about
Fair.
the book. We're gonna touch on the documentary that you're working. Is that out or is that still going on? The documentary. Uh,
So there's no documentary yet.
okay.
Actually, the book kind of took me on another path. So we'll talk
Okay.
about that though. I'll tell
Okay.
you
So. Okay.
because you'll probably love this one.
Okay.
But so my book is my personal. It's a memoir, and
Okay.
it is a self-reflective journey of everything that it took to become from unknown to surviving to thriving artist, using tattoo and kawaii to save my life. So I'm bipolar 1, and with being that being able to say that your that and other conditions like growing up in a single family home in the hood, all these stories we already know type of deal. um all of those things, your circumstances don't define you, and I'm a living testament to that. So when people say like, oh, that you're just one in a million, da 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 da, well, let me leave some type of legacy behind that can help you actually, actually defeat your own circumstances, just as well. Because I'm not one in a million. There are plenty other Black people who literally have decided that their circumstances don't define them. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't think we talk enough about embracing the dark spaces, what those circumstances were that you overcame, and talking about them loudly and proudly. So that's what my book does, is talk about like how I came into this whole realm of self-expression for personal wellness, how I became more of an advocate for like radical self-love in terms of, using self-expression as a way to explore yourself, the world around you, and to create the life that you really do want to live. So that's Shop Gal, the memoir. It's embracing hope, happiness, and happenstance. It's also a love letter to my dad. He
Mhm.
passed a year into me having my studio. Okay, this might actually be a real cry. Um,
Mhm.
he passed yeah, a year into me having my studio, almost abruptly. I almost missed his death and I felt guilty. So I didn't want to work anymore. And I almost lost my studio and my home because I was willing to let my dreams die with my dad. And he wouldn't want that. So I wrote it as a way to get out of my own way and get back to work, because that's what he would have wanted. His worry before passing was my financial future. Like, as an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
don't get it twisted. My dad wasn't a naysayer. He believed in it. He was just like, just make sure you're securing yourself along the way.
And so
He's always believed in it.
as most parents, yeah. No.
Exactly. And my dad, he's a Black man with good credit. Like,
Yeah.
so I had to kind of listen. So with that, it was like, I'll take this journey. It
Mhm.
does see me in some dark spaces that I did overcome, but I needed to see what I've already accomplished so
Mhm.
that I could go on. So sorry. Um,
That
but
this
that's
this is that's what it's no apologies. This is what the journey is about. There's
that's
there's there's tears, there's anger, there's happiness. This is what the journey is about. The journey
it.
is about those roadblocks, those deep personal uh feelings that surfaces because it's like you come out of that and we all reflect on who we lost. Like I lost my uncle, like it was really really close to me,
Yeah.
and I think he passed away before. I think he passed once the book dropped, but he never got a chance to read it. So when Cry Hero dropped, and he never, to this day, I'm just like, damn, I wish I gave him a copy, because I didn't know the severity of it
Yeah.
and of how bad it was. And then by the time, I never shared this with anybody, but his last words to me when I saw him in the hospital was, "Be patient." Was "Be patient, it's gonna work." And I was just like,
I love it.
yeah. And to this day, like now I'm seeing how everything's coming together. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow. It just it hits you. It just goes, holy God. You never know, especially like I always feel like people know on their way out when they're transitioning to the next journey, is that they know, they kind of see what
Yeah.
you're going to become, and they just like
Yeah.
they just reassure you, just like, just want to make sure that you're secure, just want to make sure you're good. And
Yeah.
him saying, "Justin, be patient," it was just like, and then couple 2 years
Yeah.
later, this Imaginative Visions and everything's is happening. You're like, wow, yeah,
Yeah.
it gets it really gets to that. And with the book, I think with just you being able to convey that, especially with your book, and just journeying, that it's very therapeutic, especially when you're writing a memoir, when you're writing about all this bottle up emotions, all the journey, because you're literally putting your struggles. You're basically telling the world in the mirror, like, this is me, guys. This is what you're
Yeah. Like
seeing,
you
what I
can't
see,
hide
my
after
reflection.
that.
It's the toughest part, especially just when you're on that journey. You're still on that journey, but when you're
Yeah.
going back and you're going through those narratives, and it had to be, especially when you're just opening about your dad, because I'm pretty sure that's in the book as well. And it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, like it's just like it opens up a whole thing. But when you look at it now, you sit back and you just go, wow, I got the shop, I got this, I got that. And it's
Yeah.
just like, wow, like
Like certain
every,
things in the book I looked at and I was like, I did that shit.
mhm,
Whoa. But also I think in a space of just surviving, you do things and me and Jackie were actually just talking about this Damon John's book uh uh The Power of Broke. He talks
mm,
about, how scarcity breeds ingenuity. And that happens when you're just trying to survive a lot of times. We know it as Black people, we've seen it all the time. That's why we're resilient. So at the end of the day, I did the same thing that I'm embedded to know to do in terms of surviving. I just never had the space to stop and look back and appreciate those milestones and moments to be like, dang, sis, you did that. Like
mhm.
you did that. So it was very therapeutic, not just in a way of saying what's up to my dad. I won't say I said goodbye because it's definitely dedicated to him. He definitely has a page of the book at his grave, all these great things. He's definitely very much living through that work, but in that I got a chance to see what my survival looked like, what my resilience, what my constancy actually looks like, um, so that I can do better with that, with those tools going forward, because they're actual tools. It's just now that I know the tools are there, I know
Mhm.
they're crafted. How do I sharpen them so I can do better for my next season in life? So that's really been a huge thing for that book.
And you said that you started a documentary, but it turned into the book. So what was the documentary going to be?
So the documentary, originally I wanted to do a documentary about Black tattoo culture.
Mhm,
Um, and then I was like, that's not the start. That's not I want to say something about that, but that's not I'm a part of Black tattoo culture.
mhm,
So, and a living historical part. So at the end of the day, I didn't need to reach so far to tell a story about Black tattoo culture and what it looked like. Um, I could just literally talk from personal experience. I'm the
mhm,
second Black female for the US. Yeah, that. So with that, it's one of those things like I've already seen a lot in terms of Black tattoo culture, and I can share that from a very intimate and personal view. Um, So I decided to pull back from the documentary, and that's when the memoir came. And now the memoir will become a manga.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
good. All right.
yeah, because
Nice.
I've been doing manga work, and I want to get back into it. So what's crazy is about the book is that it reignited that part of my life where it was just
Mm,
like, I see it, guys. I know this story and I'm going to do 12 chapters. Like, I have a whole idea pretty much mapped out in terms of this. It's just getting through certain milestones so I can get to the drawing board and actually get the thing out. But
exactly.
literally, it's turned into a manga, and it will the manga itself will focus on Black tattoo culture, but
Nice.
also still from a personal journey, from a Black girl's journey,
Mm,
in tattoo culture, because there's a lot of questions about like being a Black female in tattoo, and traveling to Japan and working there, and how you take up space and command the respect and things like that. So I think having that in a manga would be really, really fun. But especially from it won't come from like an apathetic, I've been here umpteenth years, old lady,
yeah.
angry voice. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
let me teach you these lessons back in my day. I don't want that. That's whack.
Yes.
I don't want to be that lady. Like, that's whack. That's whack.
Yeah.
I want to be like the cool grandma in tattoo culture. Like,
Yeah. You don't want to be like,
I
oh,
can still like I want to be like the baddie Winkle of Black tattoo culture.
yeah.
So
You don't want to have a manga, but like, I'll show you how to do this, son.
right, like I want this old lady. I want an old lady in the manga. Maybe I'll put that in there. I want her doing cartwheels with a cane. No, talking about some Papa Magical Girl turn up. But yeah, that's I think doing it in that right is more authentic to me,
Mhm.
more authentic to the people I want to reach. Um, you know, again, I don't want to tell it from I've been in tattoo these many years, but there are still things in tattoo, and in that personal journey that can help other people, without shaking my cane. So yeah, make it.
That's gonna be a journey. That manga in itself. I can tell you, that's gonna be that's a script.
Old lady's gonna be the conscience. Oh
That's
my god.
that's gonna be the script right there.
Oh,
Like, because I can tell you just from writing Cry Hero, My Name is Rachel, and Spades as well. Just the process, like like how you just literally visually seeing it. That's how my writing process goes. Like, I literally see everything, every emotion.
yeah,
I feel it, and then it's just a matter of putting it pen to paper. But as
yeah.
we transition more into before we get into our last section, which is the road ahead, I did promise y'all the clip. So for those who are watching this on video, you're going to see the clip while me and Imani discuss more on the audio really quickly. So I'm going to go to the clip. This is Dragon Breath Nitro Puffs. So this is...
This looks like a rave like none other.
So you don't get this stuff in New York, man.
From New York?
Yeah. Okay.
Real cold.
Okay.
Smoke lasts about 7 to 5 minutes. 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. Wow.
What do you say?
5 to 7 minutes, try it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so.
Right, in 5 to 7 minutes?
Yeah, because
okay.
it's.
Yumsy yum.
Oh my god, it stuck to my tongue. It stuck to my tongue. Okay, this one's good.
You said it's not good?
No, this one stuck to my tongue. It's like dry ice. It's like, oh my god. Okay, you cut mine. I'm done.
Hey, have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why am I on this journey? You see, I'm the second prominent Black female tattoo artist in the U.S. and the first and only vetted Black female tattoo artist recognized from D.C. And understanding my place in this industry means I have a responsibility to young women everywhere. I'm meant to inspire. I want women who look like me, strut like me, have kinky hair like me, and the sauce of the gods like me to have longevity in anything we put our minds to understand that part of achieving our dream is accepting and embracing ourselves. And that comes with a lot of things. It comes with body positivity, learning self-care, balance, and kindness to ourselves and others. Oh, and it comes with a flavorful, unapologetic boldness. That's the shop gal spirit. So let me take you on a journey, revisiting my why and telling you how I became the reimagined boss babe, making space for myself in unconventional ways. Welcome to Shop Gal. Peace.
Okay, so now for those who are watching, who's finished watching what we did video, we are at the last section of the show, the road ahead. So Imani, this is where you plug in. Where can people reach you? Where can they follow you? And tell us what is up next for you.
Woo! Okay, so I'll tell you where you can reach and follow me first, because then I'll tell you what's up next. Hopefully you'll want to follow this journey. Hooray. Anything social media, I am at IpukeKawaii. My website is IpukeKawaii.com. It's IpukeKawaii. So it literally translates to I puke cuteness. So IpukeKawaii.com, IpukeKawaii on Facebook, IpukeKawaii on Instagram, and IpukeKawaii on Twitter. I'm also searchable by my real name, Imani K Brown, on anything. So if you just wanted to do a quick Google search, if you don't remember it, that's fine too. You will definitely find me that way as well. And what's up next is the Afro Kawaii experience. So to bring this book to life, because it did make me extremely self-aware, and it made me not want to talk about the book anymore. But what I found important to talk about is taking up space as a Black alternative person and in a lifestyle, a culture, and an aesthetic that doesn't seem to be for Black people, but actually is. So talking more about that, I'll be building a community around that, around the Afro Kawaii experience. You can follow at Afro Kawaii Style on Instagram. And yeah, I have a live cast coming up soon. It's 13 movers and shakers of Black alternative creatives who have literally used their creativity as a way to cope, same as me, but also extended their creative voice to their particular culture or lifestyle of choice, their alternative lifestyle. So we have like Jackie from Adorned by Chi, Bree from B from Quirktastic, Jonquil Art, Arcisa of Harajuku Tattoo. All these people who are Black. Where people say like, that's weird, Black people don't do that. Let me tell you, we do some of the dopest shit and we make it our own. So that's the journey that I am on now, is actually expanding and opening up more about the Afro Kawaii experience, so that you can see that not just me. There are more Black people out there. We all know in blurred culture, especially, that Black people are doing a damn thing. So, you know, to see that in Kawaii culture, since Kawaii is considered almost like a cousin to hip hop, then with that, being able to actually open up that journey and share more about what we look like as cousins.
Exactly. And folks, of course, to wrap this up, obviously, imaginativevisions.com, that you're watching it here, or you're watching this on YouTube. You're watching it probably on YouTube, most likely. Cry Hero 1 and 2 are available right now. My Name is Rachel's coming out soon. And of course, if you like what we do here, like, share, and subscribe, hit that notification bell if you're watching this on YouTube. Most importantly, visit imaginativevisions.com. Imani, it has been a pleasure.
I love you, Jay.
Love you too, sis. This was a hell of an episode, amazing journey. I wish you the best. And of course, you got to keep us posted. We'll have you back next year for season 2 so we can see how the journey has progressed. I'm going to hit that intro out. Ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here. We'll see you later days.
Thank you for joining us for Imaginative Visions Journeys. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from Imaginative Visions, you can visit imaginativevisions.com.